Welcome to the CSS Battle Breakdown, Episode 9. This episode covers the Target 9 Tesseract, though this Tesseract will not be used for any sort of alien invasion. I am your host, Michael Dawson. If you want to try it yourself, you can visit cssbattle.dev and solve it along with me. Now let's get down to business and dissect this battle. Now, as usual, I will be using a 4-step process to solve the Tesseract. The first step is seeing what I have to work with and deciding on a strategy to use. This will only consider shapes and methods, not any coding tricks and shortcuts. Tesseract is actually a much simpler shape than Target 8, forking crazy. I do not foresee much trouble, so let's get right to it and look at this one piece at a time. The first thing we look at is the canvas we will be working on. It's a 400 by 300 pixel rectangle with a very dark gray background. Working back to front, the next shape is a teal rectangle. It's a horizontal stripe that goes all the way across the middle of the canvas, covering about half the vertical space. Next is a diamond the same color as the background, though the corners at the top and bottom extend beyond the canvas area. Inside that is a teal diamond. As both are the same shape, there is a good chance that we will be using a border or shadow to make the outside shape. Finally, there is a circle that's a slightly different color than the background in the middle of the canvas. Now, let's put what we learned to use. We will not use any special tricks, but instead recreate what we have learned on the first stage. The first thing we will do is get rid of that default code, leaving only the style tags. Now, we will add the gray background color by adding a background style for our body. You may notice that I used the wrong gray for this, but I will fix it later. We will instead move on to the teal stripe. First, we make a div with the appropriately named stripe class. Since it goes all the way across, we will give it a width of 100%. We will also give it a height of 50%. I don't know what its actual height is, but it seems close enough for now. I try adding auto margins in hopes of centering it, but once I add the background color, it's abundantly clear that it's not working as I want. Vertical centering is just one of those things that never works right without a whole lot of tweaking. I create a new class with the wildcard selector and set the margins on everything to 0. This gets rid of that pesky stripe along the edges and removes any worries about default margins messing up my spacing. I return to my stripe and add display fixed. When I try to adjust the top position after, I realize that I typed the wrong attribute. It was meant to be position, not display. I changed the height to 150 pixels along the way, but that changes nothing as it means the exact same thing as 50%, and once they are shortened, there is no length change between 50% and 150 using the default units. I try auto margins again, but it still doesn't work, so I go back to precise placement. I use basic math to determine that 75 pixels is the height it needs to be for centering. It seems I got lucky with the height, and it matches the example stripe. The contrast between colors during this check makes it obvious I'm using the wrong gray for the background, so I switch to the slightly darker gray. Next, I add a new div for the black diamond. I know I mentioned earlier that it will eventually be an attribute of the teal diamond, but we are trying to do things simply here, and without any tricks. I make its position fixed, then give it an initial size of 350 pixels. Then I give it its dark gray color. I try and use the rotate property, but it doesn't seem to work on div elements, so I use transform instead with the rotate function for 45 degrees. Now, I'm too lazy to use Pythagorean theorem to calculate the centering position, so instead I use trial and error. It takes a few tweaks of the size and position, but I eventually get it situated at the right spot. With the gray diamond done, it's time to move on to the teal diamond. Other than the size and position attributes being different to account for its size, everything else is the same as the gray diamond except for the color. The final piece is a circle, which is a slightly lighter, but so close that it's hard to tell gray than the other dark elements. I give it a fixed position and an initial size of 30 pixels. Then it gets its color. After that is giving it a border radius of 50% to transform it from a square into a circle. Because I didn't do any rotating, it is easy to do the math to center this one. After a little tweaking, it ends up as 50 pixels in diameter. After submitting, we have a perfect match. It uses 793 characters for a score of 600.21. Now we will move on to optimizing the code. I admit I'm going to do the bare minimum here because the final version will be using several tricks that will greatly alter the form of it. Now, the main thing we're going to do is remove the black diamond and attach it to the teal diamond. Notice that when I add a border, it changes the size of the div, which means I need to alter the positioning. Next, I move position fixed from all the parts into the wildcard selector. Since the black diamond class is no longer needed, I will just delete it. It looks good, so I'll submit. But it seems something is wrong. I only have a 99.8% match, which gives a big hit to my score. If you look closely, you can see that the border has a little bit of teal along the edges for some reason as an artifact of the rotation. I change it to a box shadow and readjust the positioning, since box shadows are not counted as part of the element size like a border is. After submitting, we're back at 100% match using 589 characters for a score of 601.46. Now we will use every trick we can to reduce the size of the code. The first time time I tried this, I forgot to record. I did get a new record though. Fortunately, I did even better on the second try, which you are about to see. First big change I am making relies on the fact that the body tag is contained within the HTML tag. Because of that, we can style the body separately and allow the HTML tag to take its attributes from the wildcard selector. This means that my stripe can be the body, while the background is applied to the HTML element. Now the div for the stripe is no longer needed and can be removed. As a P is much shorter than a div, and a pseudo element of D is much shorter than a class teal diamond, we will convert the diamond and use this. We will be making the same change to the circle. The next thing we will do is a trick with inheritance. The body and the diamond share several attributes, so we will move what we can into the same block as the body. Then we will just overwrite what is needed in the diamond style. Starting with width, 100% uses 4 characters. Relying on the fact that we know that the output is 400 pixels wide and pixels are the default unit, we can instead set the width to 400, which is only 3 characters. Then I will remove the units in height and the unneeded spaces. As the height has been set in the combine block, it is no longer needed in the diamond style. We will remove the units from the width due to it defaulting to pixel units. Then we remove the background color as it's already specified in the combine block. The top positioning is also shared and can be removed. Then we remove a few more pixel units and excess spaces. Next, we begin to compact the code, removing the spaces and line breaks that are only there to improve human readability. We also remove the last semicolon of each block, as that is assumed to be there when the block is closed. The spaces between the zeros on the box shadows are required to differentiate its arguments. The units also do not default to pixels, or to any unit at all, and is required. The pixel unit, however, removed the need for a space, as the unit marks the separation between the two arguments. We remove the remaining spaces, however at the end we also remove the closing tags, and the browser will automatically assume they are there. And after submitting, our new high score is 630.22, up from 601.46, while the character count went down from 589 characters to 271 characters. If you have any questions about why I did something or suggestions on how to improve the final score, leave a comment below. Liking and subscribing wouldn't hurt either. I will put a link to the playlist containing this series on the screen here if you want to view the rest of the series. Thanks for watching.